Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year to you all. Don't need to worry about sitting near the back. There's not going to be any questions. I'm not going to pick anybody. It's not like a pantomime. I'm not going to get you to come up onto the stage, so you're quite safe. So if you want to move seats or come a bit closer, you can do. You're perfectly safe. Today's a really exciting day for the Trust. Sorry, I should put that down. Because this is our first conference, the first chance we've had as a Trust to all get together. And that really is a culmination of a couple of years' hard work behind the scenes in getting our schools together and getting the Trust to come together today. And the idea of today is just to explain to you a little bit where we're up to in our development, our plans and our forward thinking, our passion and our desire for education and how we think that will help our young people, and to make sure that you all feel part of the TDET family. Because when we work in separate institutions, it's sometimes difficult to feel part of that collective whole. And today is about making sure that you network with people, talk to people you've not spoken to before, and begin to feel part of something that is bigger. I just thought I'd start off by reminding us of the origins and why Thomas Deacon and why Thomas Deacon Education Trust is the title of our trust. Because as you know, Thomas Deacon was a really important person in the city of Peterborough, and his guiding principles and values are those same guiding principles and values that drive us as a trust now. That absolute commitment to empowering those people, those young people who have come from backgrounds of possible social disadvantage, who do not always have some of the advantages that we would want for them. And to make sure that, just as Thomas Deacon did, we're giving them the very best possible start in life. Not just with their education, not just with their learning and their exam results, but also thinking about the whole child, about the skill set that they'll need as they move into the world of work or further in higher education, to make sure that they feel as fulfilled as possible. And it's important, I think, for us to remember that these are our origins. And as you know, there is a ceremony, Thomas Deacon himself is buried in the cathedral in Peterborough, and we at Thomas Deacon Academy have a ceremony every year to commemorate him and to remember those values and principles that started this whole thing off. And we're really lucky this year because obviously Queen Catherine is also buried in Peterborough Cathedral, and we're going to be able to join up the two ceremonies this year and to honour Queen Catherine in the same way that we honour Thomas Deacon. So that's something that's really exciting for us. But I thought it was important that we remembered that notion of service, of doing something for others, of doing something for the children and their families, are still the same values and principles that drive us today. Our story so far is an interesting one, and we're atypical of many other trusts. Lots of other trusts get groups of good schools together who say, should we form a trust and get on with things, and we've always worked well together, shall we do that? And we've not done that. We've kind of gathered like-minded people to us. And our story so far has been really quite an exciting one, if demanding one. And I think it's that challenge that excites us as teachers, as members of associate staff, and as school leaders and governors. I think it's important to remember that we have got this principle about improving things for children in Peterborough, and our commitment to being a Peterborough-wide trust is really important, because we feel, as people who live and work in the city, that we understand the needs of the children and their families, and we work hard to build community to enable the families and the children to thrive. So we're lucky that we were joined by what was then Voyager and is now Queen Catherine Academy, shortly followed by Gladstone Primary Academy, and as you can see, we're to be joined by ICRA Academy. Hopefully the next window for free schools opens in January, and we'll be able to put in a bid for ICRA Academy to join us sometime during this academic year. But then equally 2 more primary schools joining our trust as well, which means in terms of size, although we're small in numbers of schools, we are large in numbers of pupils, and so we probably constitute what would be termed a medium-sized trust. thought it was important to share with you the structure of governance that exists, because we read far too often in the press about trusts that have come unstuck, trusts that haven't used their responsibility or their finances responsibly, and they haven't delivered on what their mission is, which is to ensure that young people get the best possible education and educational chances. And I thought it was really, I needed today to share with you how we are governed, because quite often it's easy to think, just because I'm the CEO, that I'm not held accountable by anybody, that I can just waft in and out of schools, have a cup of tea there, a cup of coffee there, hold a few meetings, and nobody is keeping a check on what I am doing. So this is the governance and leadership arrangement for our trust, and as you can see, I just thought I'd explain it to you, and forgive me if I'm telling you things that you already know. I have a board of trustees who I'm directly accountable for, and believe you me, some of those trustees are here today, they hold me very rigorously to account, and rightly so, because we are using public money to fund our trust. But above the trustees, there is a board of members who hold the trustees to account. So the trustees are there to ensure that they help me shape and form the direction of the trust, that they make sure that the principles and values of the educational standards and the financial things are in order. But the members are there to make sure that the trustees are doing their job right well. And we're just coming up in January to the time when the members will meet the trustees and say, right, what have you done over this last year? Have you achieved all you set out to achieve? What are your goals for the next year and how are you going to achieve them? And we have a format of governance whereby the local governing bodies sit beneath the trustees. So each school retains its own local governing body, and for us that is really important, because one, the principal needs to work with that group of people, again, to drive the standards, to create the culture and ethos for that school, but equally, the people from that community need to be able to talk to the principal and the senior leaders in that school to ensure that the children that we serve are getting the best possible deal. I thought I'd just share with you who some of the people are and their backgrounds, because these are people who give up their time to serve our trust. They don't get paid for doing any of this. And so as you can see, the members, the people who sit at the very top of the tree, if you like, and hold the trustees and myself to account, are people who are not just Peterborough based. Yes, they have some connection with Peterborough, but they come from all parts of the country. And they come from all different parts of businesses, and so therefore they come with a really clear perspective of what a good business model looks like, as well as the educational standards. And they are the people who give up their time freely to serve as part of our trust board. Our members. Then our trust board are the people who you are more likely to see more frequently. And we have a range of people, again, from both education background and business background, who serve on the Board of Trustees to make sure that myself and other senior leaders, the principals, Simon Smith as Director of Business Resources, are held clearly to account for what is happening across all of our schools, and to make sure that our resources, both educational and business, are being targeted appropriately. We have now a range of services that sit within our trust, which means that we're not just working in our individual schools anymore, but we're sharing resource across the trust so that we can help to raise standards and share best practice. And that's been a really important development in this last 12 months. So we've now got a range of people leading on the things that are most important currently to us. So looking at the data, obviously a really important thing, but then thinking about things like literacy, EAL, maths, English, SEND, science, and something that's absolutely unique to our trust, our combined cadet force, and having a lead person for the trust on that who can then work with those young people and thinking about the whole child across all of our schools. And as the trust grows, this group of people will grow, and there will be more opportunities for people to become involved at a trust-wide level. Some of these people work full-time for the trust, some of these people combine it with their day job, and so are partly working in the school and partly working as a member of the trust. Excuse me. It's equally the same for our business services team. We now have a really clear business services structure and a range of people who deliver services across all of our schools and who have the capacity to take on even more schools to deliver those services there. And Simon and his team of managers have worked really hard to make sure that there is a business model that is deliverable and that we can expand as the trust expands so that it's future-proofed. That's what I call the business side of the trust, and that's how we're made up, and that for me is the operational stuff. What I kind of really want to talk to you in the next 15 minutes about is what is it that makes us special? When I became CEO, I decided that our tagline would be unity of purpose, diversity of practice. And I had some away time with the principals a couple of weeks before Christmas. Sorry. And we talked about this tagline, and we talked about the challenges that poses for us, because at the time I was really passionate about that unity of purpose. We all know why we're here. We all know about the standards we want for young people. We all know what we believe in. We all know that we want to make a difference for the children in our care. But the diversity of practice, as we grow and continue to grow, and as we want to do things which we think are the best way for the children, it becomes a challenge. And one of the principals said to me, I hope it doesn't become something that you regret later on, because as we want to do things more uniformly, we find ourselves increasingly thinking, maybe we ought to do that the same, maybe we ought to do that the same. And you will understand from knowing some of the other trusts that exist in the country that having a one-size model that fits all is not our intention. But undoubtedly, there are times when it makes sense for us all to do things in a similar way so that we can measure the progress that we're making as a trust. So that unity of purpose and diversity of practice is something that I continue to grapple with. How can I remain true to that as your CEO and yet make sure that we've got the common standards that the trustees and the members require, the Regional Schools Commissioner and Ofsted, whilst allowing each school, each leader, each group of teachers to bring their own practice, their own passion, their own flavour to what it is you're trying to do. And for me, that is something I will continue to grapple with as I move forward, and I'm sure it's something that I will have conversations with all of you about at some point as you challenge, rightly so, or as I challenge you, rightly so, about the way in which things are being done. But I just thought we'd have a look at some of the things that I think are important and the values that I think sit beneath our trust. I think when I thought about unity of purpose and diversity of practice, I wanted to think of a uniqueness for our trust. I wanted to kind of, and this is typical of me I suppose, be one of a kind. I wanted us to be something special, something different, not just another trust that's been set up, a group of good schools get together, but actually we're a group of schools who've got together because fundamentally we believe in the same things. We believe in making a big difference to children for whom education sometimes can be a struggle. Whether that's because you're a high flyer and you're finding the pressures of the education system too much, or whether it's because you start from a low starting point and need lots of help to get to where you need to be. But that uniqueness for us, and as we met, and as I say, we only met a few weeks before Christmas as a group of principals, we finally distilled down to, we've been grappling with, is it because we're a Peterborough-based trust, or is it because we have a high number of children with English as an additional language? Is that the unique part of our trust? Is it because we welcome diversity amongst our children? What is it that makes us unique? And I think as we moved away from notions of competition and comparison, and we tried to really distill what it was that made us unique, we decided that what makes us unique are our values. the values that we hold as a trust, that you hold in your schools, because you all have a slightly different set of values within your schools, and that you hold personally as teachers, as associate staff, as professionals associated with our schools. And as we talked about our values and how we use the values in our schools to drive our decision making, we began to talk about, the more we create as a trust through our values, the more unique we will become. Because how often, I'm thinking of myself as a parent, how often when I went into a parents' evening or I was sent for because my children weren't perfect and I had to go and speak to somebody at the school, how often did anybody ever talk to me about values? They talked to me about systems and procedures, but they didn't talk to me about values. And I think the one thing that makes our trust unique is that our principals and our senior leaders and our chairs of local governing bodies are all driven by a really strong sense of values and beliefs and principles for young people. And more than that, they don't just hold those values, they're prepared to talk about them, to share them, to stand by them, to talk to parents about them, to talk to young people about them. And that is what makes us unique. And of course, every child that we serve is unique. Every single young person, you saw some of their faces as you were coming in. Every single child in our trust is absolutely unique. They bring to us something new, something that's not existed before. And our foremost task is to make sure that whatever that young person's uniqueness is, that we actualise it, we bring it out, and we celebrate the never-recurring possibilities that each child brings. Okay. Trust. There we go. So, TDET, trust, diversity, excellence, transformation. The T for trust is the most important value to me. For me, trust trumps everything. Everything flows from trust. Learning, credibility, accountability, a sense of purpose, a mission that makes our work bigger than just ourselves. And that trust amongst us is really important. And I suppose the challenge for me, and my challenge to you, is how do you build a team that trusts each other so much that it's prepared to take risks? How do you make it possible for a team, your team, whatever team that might be, whatever your role in school, how is it possible for your team to engage in passionate and sometimes emotional debate about things and know that you will not be punished for saying something that goes against the grain, that might be perceived as critical, or that others might then attempt to destroy? How do you build that trust so that we can have those professional debates with knowing that when we walk away from this, we're professionals and we can trust each other to behave in the right way? And for me, that trust is a massive thing, because when you get to the point where you can share your vulnerability, that is when you have reached a true moment of trust. And I think that's something we need to think about, not only in our relationships with ourselves, but in our relationships with the families and with our children. Because once they're prepared to trust you with their vulnerability, then you know that you can make that difference. You know you can move things forward. Our next value is around diversity. And this, of course, is built on this sense of uniqueness, that each school, each individual is different. And this encompasses acceptance and respect for the diverse communities that we serve, and that we understand and value our differences. That diversity is something to be celebrated. But how often as adults do we look for conformity? How often do we see diversity as something that is a challenge, a barrier to be overcome? How often do we talk in our schools about English as an additional language, as that's a challenge or a barrier to be overcome, rather than thinking about, we've got some really talented children in our schools because they're bilingual or multilingual. So that diversity brings a sense of something unique to our trust, which makes, for me, our trust very exciting. And then the E for TDET stands for excellence. And excellence is a great thing, isn't it? Because excellence can't be defined, really, because my excellence is different to your excellence, is different to the next person's excellent. And excellence isn't just a state of being. Excellence can be a journey, it can be a destination. For me, excellence is ever-changing, because when you reach your perceived layer of excellence, you're then looking for something else, so you're looking for more excellence, aren't you? But excellence, I know, demands hard work. It demands determination, and it demands focus. And that means an ever-growing collective, personal best and group best. So it's important that we think about that excellence. I know, as I walk around our schools and I go into classrooms, I see lots and lots and lots of excellent practice. I see lots and lots of excellence in our business services. I see lots of amazing food. I see lots of clean classrooms. I see lots of well-cut grasses and tended flower beds. I see lots of exciting learning. I see lots of children with smiles on their faces taking part in activities which have nothing to do with what's going on in the classroom, who are growing in stature, growing in personality, growing in confidence because of what you offer in our schools. That excellence is something that we all strive for. And I say this, any time I encounter anybody in authority like an Ofsted inspector or regional schools commissioner, I have yet to meet a teacher or a member of staff who works in a school who is not committed to excellence for our children. And I think that's something we need to talk about more often, talk about the excellent things that go on in our schools, because very often we talk about the things that need improving in our schools rather than really celebrating the things that are excellent. And then the T, obviously, as I said, stands for transformation. And transformation is a really difficult thing, isn't it? Transformation means you've made something completely different from where you started. And transformation requires brave leadership. And everybody who works in this trust is a learner, and everybody who works in this trust is a leader. It doesn't matter what part you play in your school, you are both a learner and a leader. And transformation will come through that, through a better, deeper understanding of the possibilities that that can bring. Everyone a learner, everyone a leader. From the youngest child in our EYFS stage right through to the oldest person in the room, which is probably more likely to be me. But that transformation comes from that ability to identify a needed change, to create a vision to guide people through it, inspire people, execute the change, deliver it with passion and energy, follow it through, model it through visible behaviours, visible attitudes, visible actions, give people intellectual stimulation, and then motivate people, rally them, listen to them, care for them, soothe them when needed. That's what transformation is. Because then when we get to the end from where we started, we'll have something completely different, something which is worthwhile because it is driven by our values. So this brings us back to our unity of purpose and diversity of practice. And I've talked about a lot of things there, and I hope all of you have managed to take some of that in and think about, where do you stand on these things? What conversations are you going to have as a result of this? How much do you trust people to be able to have a really truthful conversation with them about things that matter to you? How confident do you feel to challenge when you think things aren't right or things aren't good enough for the children? How committed to excellence are you? That even though you're tired, it's a wet Wednesday afternoon, children are playing up, and you think it would just be so easy if I just did this. But no, you challenge yourself to do that challenging lesson that you planned, that challenging activity. You are going to do that piece of work that you said you were going to do, even though you would rather have a cup of coffee and sit down. And how are you going to transform people in what you do, in your work, in your conversations? Not just with children, not just with families, not just with colleagues, but wider in our community. Because we all belong to our community, we all belong to Peterborough, we all belong beyond Peterborough. What conversations do we have with people to let them know about what we're doing in our trust and how things have transformed lives for our children? We've got some really exciting developments for this year. Firstly, we're having an online platform to help support your training and professional development, and we're creating that in conjunction with Pearson's, the publishers, and that will be rolled out in the new year. And that will enable you to keep as up to date with your training as you possibly can. It will start off with some quite basic stuff, but hopefully in time that will become a real repository of excellence and knowledge for people to turn to if they're not sure about something in their training. We also launched the new TDET website this week, which again will share best practice across our trust. It should be a one-stop shop, a place you go to if you want to know about further professional development opportunities, if there are any career opportunities for you in the trust, to find out about news in the trust, to find after the 17th of January the strategic plan for the trust so you can understand the direction of travel the trustees have approved for the trust for the next 4 to 5 years. These are all things that we're investing in, along with a huge amount around our HR to make sure that you as employees of our trust feel valued in what you do. Because every week when I come into schools, and as you know I'm in every single school every single week, I come into classrooms and I walk down corridors and I walk around buildings, I am truly thankful for all of the work that you do. I feel truly privileged to be supported in what I know sometimes can be a difficult journey by colleagues as professional and committed as you are. On that note, I'm going to wish you all a very happy new year. Thank you. Thank you from my heart for all that you do for our children. Please, please keep doing it for them, because you are changing lives. Thank you.